When Melania Trump mocks Gregory's boutique at a high-profile event, the opulent laughter of the elite hums through the air like cold steel, driving him to the brink of despair. Yet as the echoes of derision fade, Gregory ignites a passion that transcends mere revenge. He seeks to elevate the voices of local artisans hidden in plain sight. With every brushstroke and seam that captures genuine artistry, he dares to transform the narrative from one of shame to one of resilience. As his groundbreaking showcase nears, can Gregory's unique vision shatter the facade of privilege, or will Melania's influence prove insurmountable? In the heart of the upscale town of Bellevue, where opulence draped itself over the streets like a shimmering garment, a vibrant air of exclusivity filled every corner. The neighborhood unfolded like a well-crafted piece of fashion, each block a different palette, every store a designer label. Lush greenery lined the immaculate streets, dotted with sprawling boutiques and cafes, where laughter mixed with the faint sound of clinking wine glasses, and gossip echoing from polished marble countertops created an atmosphere tinged with both allure and tension. Here the elite mingled among themselves, their status defining interactions, while the facade of luxury masked a cutthroat undercurrent. Amidst this polished chaos stood Gregory Bell's boutique, an elegant but understated space called Couturier's Corner. Unlike the ostentatious glamour of its neighbors, Gregory's establishment celebrated artistry over extravagance. Bathed in soft, warm lights and adorned with tasteful displays of handcrafted apparel, the boutique emanated a quaint charm, a sanctuary for local artisans whose creativity often went unnoticed in Bellevue's shimmering spotlight. Gregory himself was a man of around 40, with expertly tousled dark hair that framed his sharp features and bright green eyes that sparkled with a unique combination of creativity and humility. Having grown up in a modest town, he possessed an innate passion for fashion and a deep-seated commitment to uplifting the underrepresented crafters of his community. Gregory's role extended beyond merely managing a store. He was a curator of local talent. He believed wholeheartedly in the power of a story woven into the fabric of every piece, knowing the artisans behind them needed a place to be seen and celebrated. Behind the quaint charm of his boutique lay an inspirational vision: to create a collaborative space that showcased local craftsmanship and authenticity, standing apart from the plastic glamour that characterized Bellevue. However, that vision was about to be challenged, and not just by the unfairness of the competitive fashion industry. On that fateful afternoon, as sunlight spilled like liquid gold over the streets, an atmosphere of anticipation electrified the air. The day marked a significant event at Couturier's Corner, a lavish fashion show showcasing creations not just from Gregory's collection, but integrating the work of several local artisans. Streamers fluttered promisingly outside, and soft music emanated from within, setting the stage for an evening aimed to captivate the elite. As guests took their places in the carefully arranged seating, adorned with plush velvet cushions, whispers of excitement rippled through the crowd. It was then, punctuating the transition from anxious anticipation to extravagant revelry, that the unmistakable figure of Melania Trump glided into the boutique. Known for her charismatic allure and an almost magnetic grip on social power, she was a luminous star in Bellevue's social sky. Her entrance was never subtle. It demanded attention, and her perfectly manicured fingers gestured magnificently as if controlling the rhythm of the evening. "Gregory, darling!" Melania's voice rang through the air with the force of a champagne pop, catching the attention of the entire audience. She wore a stunning gown, cinched at the waist and adorned with jewels, the very embodiment of wealth and influence. Approaching Gregory with a self-assured stride, she inspected the boutique with a raised eyebrow, taking in the carefully curated display of local artisans' works with a look of bemusement. "This isn't half as glamorous as I had hoped. Where's the pizzazz?" Gregory felt a tightening in his chest, an all-too-familiar sensation of tension building in the atmosphere, as laughter stammered from the audience, low and nervous, hovering over him like a dark cloud. "Welcome, Melania," he replied, forcing the corners of his mouth to lift in what he hoped transformed into a semblance of genuine hospitality. "I think you'll find the—" "More shimmer, Gregory. The crowd thirsts for sparkle," she interrupted, her tone dripping with theatricality, waving an elegantly manicured hand in a dismissive gesture. You simply cannot expect people to drool over this collection of quaint garments. Artisanal chic is so last season, Melania declared, and her laughter cascaded into the space, inviting the audience to join in, their responses faltering between the pressure to agree and the desire to stay loyal to Gregory's vision. I believe the beauty lies in the stories and the craftsmanship, Gregory tried to assert, his voice steady but shaken. He could feel the weight of her gaze, a mixture of curiosity and condescension, pressing down upon him. Whenever he spoke, he sensed that his words became mere whispers against her dramatic rhetoric, overshadowed by her grace and charisma. "Oh, darling," Melania retracted, tilting her head with a feline grace that left Gregory feeling vulnerable and exposed. "Stories are great, but in fashion, it's all about the wow factor." She leaned in slightly, her expression shifting to theatrical sympathy as she continued. "You don't want to be outdone at your own show, do you?" The crowd erupted in laughter yet again, and Gregory's heart sank a little deeper, each chuckle a knotted twist of embarrassment tightening around him. That moment lingered, acerbic and disquieting, like the last note of a sour chord in a melodious symphony. Gregory felt the world around him spiral for a fleeting moment, realizing that the laughter directed at his expense dimmed the light of his passion for craftsmanship. It was not the art he loved that was being ridiculed. It was his very essence of believing in authenticity, now branded as quaint and irrelevant. As the laughter waned and Melania took her seat, an uncomfortable silence enveloped the room for a moment, punctuated only by the distant sound of clattering glasses from a nearby table. Gregory inhaled deeply, grounding himself in the warmth of the boutique he had crafted with care and dedication, allowing the passion that had ignited his dreams to flicker back to life beneath layers of humiliation. He understood the stakes. He began plotting, quietly daring to unearth a new resolve from the ashes of embarrassment. Melania's presence was never just a challenge. It was a grand spectacle laced with an unrelenting push to conform. He needed to reclaim this evening, and it began with a flicker of creative inspiration. Gathering support from the artisans he revered, women and men whose stories and work deserved to be illuminated, Gregory's vision took a turn. His mind raced with a new idea that was both bold and endearing. Instead of sending a message of defeat, he would craft a narrative all his own, one that celebrated the beautiful imperfection of individuality and creativity. "Ladies and gentlemen," Gregory's voice rose, trembling, but undeterred as he took the stage after Melania's echoing laughter subsided. "Welcome. Tonight we bring forth not just a collection, but a celebration of our community's talent." As he spoke, he ventured to meet the gaze of the crowd, a hopeful light sparking within him. However, he knew the path ahead was no mere conclusion of words, but the culmination of embracing what seemed like insurmountable odds. The night, which had started with an imbalance of ridicule, turned in the fluttering fabric of possibility. He could feel the rising tension in the audience as they shifted in their seats, some leaning forward in curiosity while others whispered sweet nothings of support. They were receptive. They were the witnesses of his journey. Slowly but steadily, Gregory's determination echoed louder than Melania's dominance, and as the lights dimmed and the glittering backdrop transitioned, he sensed the tipping point was upon him. This was merely the introduction of a story that would soon unravel even deeper layers of elegance and courage, as a defense against a world filled with prejudice, chasing the allure of conformance. From this moment on, Gregory Bell was not just a boutique manager. He was a champion for authenticity, a beacon of creativity ready to emerge from the shadows of societal demands. The air in Bellevue was littered with newfound potential, allowing the fragrant scent of blossoming hope to drown out the last whispers of laughter, setting an enchanted stage of self-reflection and personal growth that lay ahead. And in the quiet corners of the room, where the murmurs faded and laughter ebbed, a flicker of rebellion nestled within Gregory's heart, unwavering, ready to illuminate the path for all who dared to be different. The stage was set for a chic uprising in Bellevue, one that would resonate far beyond the walls of his boutique as the tension hung like velvet in the air, ripe for exploration. The laughter from the crowd filled the air like a balloon ready to burst, but for Gregory Bell, The sound was a distant echo against the pounding of his heart. He stood rooted in the center of his boutique, the golden light glinting off the silk displays that had taken him weeks to curate. It was the first time his dream of bringing local artisans' creations to a fashionable forefront had unfolded in such a grand venue. And yet here he was, the punchline of a cruel joke. Melania Trump, with her perfectly coiffed hair and designer clothes, had taken center stage. But her jest had not simply humiliated him. It had struck a nerve that ran far deeper than mere embarrassment. He looked out into the sea of faces turned towards Melania, their smiles crumpling into smirks at the overt display of wealth and power. The laughter felt like daggers, and for a moment, Gregory's passion shimmered at the edges, a dying ember beneath a shower of scorn. Shadows cast by the glitz around him threatened to bury his voice. But within him, something began to stir, an ignition of spirit rising from the ashes of humiliation. "I won't let this define me," he murmured, clenching his fist to steady the tremors within. He had cultivated this boutique not just as a shop, but as a sanctuary for creativity, a vibrant homage to the artisans, whose stories went unheard in the face of high fashion and elitism. As the evening wore on, the laughter eventually faded, and Melania moved through the crowds, her presence so luminous that Gregory felt a voracious hunger for space. He turned and grabbed a few of the artisan pieces from a nearby rack, seeking solace in their rugged beauty. Gregory had collected ceramics and hand-woven fabrics from local craftspeople, each item infused with stories of personal struggle and rich history. Perhaps this was where he could find his ground. He took a deep breath, focusing on the intricate tapestry of one artisan's work, each thread representing resilience. It was then, while he was absorbed in admiration, that the idea struck him with the force of a rushing tide. Why not organize an event that showcased all the talent in Bellevue? An exhibition that celebrated authenticity over the hollow glamour paraded by the socialite? An event that ascended beyond the taunts thrown at him that night and reveled in the beauty of true craftsmanship. He imagined local designers, artists, and even musicians joining forces, each contributing their voice to the direction of a richer narrative, one that challenged Melania's dominance. He had significant ground to cover, but hope bubbled within him like champagne ready to overflow. "Hey, Greg, what's up?" A familiar voice cut through his reverie. He looked up to see Leo, one of the local designers he often collaborated with, entering the boutique, a wide smile plastered across his face. Leo had always had an infectious energy, and his bright attire mirrored his vibrant personality. Gregory shared the thoughts curling in his mind, excited, his hands gesturing furiously. "Leo, what if we did a showcase?" Gregory's voice trembled, not with fear this time, but with vision. "A powerful presentation that highlights our local talent. We can spotlight authentic craftsmanship, the stories behind these pieces, and shatter the perceived dominance of what Melania represents." Leo's eyebrows shot up as he considered it. "That could be huge. The community here, everyone's been longing for something that celebrates where we come from. It's been so skewed towards the elite for far too long. But we need to make it spectacular, something that resonates, and it has to stand distinct from Melania's glamour," Gregory replied with renewed determination. "Let's invite all the artisans I know, pour our hearts into this, and build something unforgettable." Through weeks of fervent planning, Gregory's vision began to take shape. He rallied the artisans, each ready to shed the confines of Melania's influence. Sarai, a designer specializing in eco-friendly materials, shared her enthusiasm for weaving sustainability into elegance. Malik, who painted textiles inspired by nature, contributed vibrant colors that mirrored the lush landscapes of Bellevue. They all came together to create a synergistic harmony that encapsulated their shared value: authenticity. However, news of Gregory's show reached Melania faster than he could commit each detail to memory. The jealousy that wrapped around her heart twisted into a determined rage when she learned that her social status was about to be challenged. After a week of quiet planning, she emerged from the shadows, pulling together her own extravagant campaign to undermine his efforts. "Darling, they want big names, glitz and glam, not some local nonsense," she threw at her friends over a lavish brunch, fingers delicately swirling a sparkling mimosa as they snickered in agreement. You know what this town needs? An actual show, one that screams class. The following days, Melania unleashed a wave of glamour upon Bellevue. Celebrities arrived like glittering gems from the sky, drawn by her calls and allure. High-fashion magazines began to circle her event, with promises of front-page exposures. The messages she cast out were laced with mockery, either outright dismissive or dripping with condescension about the pretensions of local fashion. Do you really think anyone wants to wear something made by small-town hobbyists? One friend chimed in, her words gnashing in disdain. It's all a farce and nobody cares. Unless it's from Milan, it doesn't matter. Gregory felt the impact of her relentless maneuver like an icy hand closing around his throat. Countering Melania's tenacity seemed impossible. She thrust herself into every media channel, the local gossip columns flooded with opinions that seeped into the community like weeds. The rich socialites' risk was proclaimed as a spectacle worth their time, while any sincerity in Gregory's showcase was drowned in whispered laughter, ridicule lurking at every corner. "You're just an underdog trying to play with the wolves," one local socialite scoffed during a casual encounter. Gregory met her gaze with a steady resolve, his heart racing but his voice calm. "What is wrong with supporting our own?" he had asked, but she merely rolled her eyes, retreating into the folds of her glittering circle. But underneath the cloud of strife, Gregory found strength in his coalition of artisans. They met frequently in his boutique, a sanctuary where laughter and creativity bloomed, voices overlapping like threads weaving a vivid tapestry of unity. Instead of quelling his spirit, Melania's maneuvers had galvanized Gregory and his allies, each conversation igniting embers of resilience in those gathered. "I don't care what Melania throws our way. We'll make them see the value in this," Gregory remarked one evening, leaning against a table strewn with sketches and fabric swatches. The group murmured in eager agreement beneath the fluorescent lights that buzzed with energy. One afternoon, as they prepared canvases filled with passion and ideas for the showcase, Leo was stitching together a piece that invoked both challenge and beauty. "Greg, look at what we're doing here," he said excitedly. "This is all about the journey, not just the end product. Each artisan's heart is sewn into every thread, every detail. This is the essence of fashion, true fashion. It tells a story." The days leading up to the event transformed into a whirlwind of creativity and collaboration. As the energy swelled, so too did the crowd of supporters rallying around Gregory, whispers of excitement blooming in the community. They invited all the struggling artists, musicians, and creators to share their narratives, each voice penetrating the socialite bubble that had suffocated so many before. Then came the day Gregory's showcase was set to unfold. The atmosphere buzzed with electric anticipation. Artisans lined the boutique's walls, each space pulsating with character and stories waiting to be told. Gregory had handpicked every detail. He had even strung twinkling lights that captured the essence of night and warmth, colors draping around in a symphony rather than a cacophony. But as guests began to arrive, a familiar chill slid through the door. Melania appeared in a host of glamour and branding, her supporters trailing in gold and silver, creating an explosion of glitz amidst the authenticity that permeated Gregory's vision. She sauntered into the room, hand on hip, flipping hair like a sensational backdrop against reverence. The attention shifted, uncertainties rippling through the crowd. Gregory felt the iron clench of anxiety tighten around his chest. "This cannot be happening," he whispered, the flickering lights casting shadows across his face, juxtaposing his hope against the growing uncertainty. But as the event built momentum, it became clear to Gregory and his allies that their story had only just begun. He could see with clarity. Each artisan emerged alive with spirit, pouring hearts into conversations. Their authenticity emerged like vibrant petals breaking through concrete. Even in her over-the-top extravagance, she cannot drown out the stories that live here, Gregory announced, a quiet resolve mingling with the air as he stood surrounded by his comrades. "We will not bend for her trappings. We only flourish when we stay true to ourselves." As the night unfolded and the moment spilled over into warmth, laughter rang out. Not laughter at Gregory's expense, but laughter shared, stories exchanged, and connections made. It surged through them all, washing away the last shreds of insecurity and prompting a powerful narrative that contrasted starkly with Melania's glamorous shadow. In that moment, amid the laughter, amid the authentic connections that the crowd began to build, something shifted. Melania's face tightened as she overheard snippets of appreciation towards genuine artistry, notices of beauty beyond the superficial sheen she had enforced for so long. And then it struck. The core of the conflict lay not simply in their standoff, but in the very narratives shaping Bellevue's future. For just as it seemed the scales might tip in favor of festivity, another wave of uncertainty hovered. Gregory could feel the tension push against the air like heavy smoke, and his heart raced as a thought crystallized like ice in his veins. Would the essence of what they had created endure against the onslaught of Melania's influence? The crowd swelled and swirled around them, but their fate teetered on a precarious edge. Just how strong was their message of authenticity against Melania's opulent charisma? The laughter of the crowd washed over him, but as he looked to the socialite with steadfast resolve in his eyes, uncertainty crept in. A lingering question left hanging like a silken thread, waiting to be interwoven into the tapestry of their story. Would they indeed rise together, or would they find themselves choked beneath the weight of privilege personified once again? The atmosphere inside Gregory's boutique had shifted dramatically as the sun dipped below the horizon, casting a golden glow on the vibrantly adorned walls where each piece displayed was a testament to authenticity over ostentation. Anticipation mingled with a palpable tension as the crowd trickled in, their eyes wide with curiosity. Local artisans stood beside their creations, an intricate tapestry of stories woven through textiles and craftsmanship, each piece reflecting the rich heritage of Bellevue. In stark contrast, Melania Trump arrived late, dramatic and commanding, her entrance reminiscent of a queen surveying her realm. She sauntered in, dressed impeccably in an expensive designer gown, her presence immediately igniting whispers among the attendees. Though her entourage sparkled with glittering accolades, a sharp edge cut through the air, an undercurrent of resistance that Gregory had worked tirelessly to cultivate. "Ah, Gregory, dear," Melania purred, her voice smooth yet laced with condescension. "Is this really what you're putting on display? I hope you know that people come here for the experience, not whatever this is." She waved her hand dismissively at the artisans around her. Gregory, heart pounding, felt the heat of humiliation brush against his skin, but this time he was prepared. He stepped forward, his resolve fortified. "It's about authenticity, Melania, something that can't be bought with prestige or wealth." His voice trembled slightly, but the fire in his eyes spoke of determination. A murmur rippled through the audience, and more people turned their attention toward him, intrigued. The tide was shifting, and for the first time, Melania's confident demeanor faltered. A young woman, clutching a handcrafted clutch crafted from repurposed materials, stepped closer to Gregory. "He's right. We're here to celebrate real creativity. Our stories matter." Eager chatter rose from the guests now, each voice weaving tales of struggle and triumph that infused vigor into the boutique's atmosphere. Gregory seized the moment, picking up a small hand-painted plate made by a local artisan, Eleanor, who stood nervously by. "This plate isn't just decor," he began, processing the proud smile that breached Eleanor's anxious facade. "It embodies years of tradition. It tells us the story of resilience. Isn't that what fashion truly is? An extension of our identity?" Melania, feigning disinterest, rolled her eyes, but inside something twisted. She could feel the unfurling of support for Gregory and the rise of voices she had dismissed for so long. "Fashion is about innovation and the power of influence, Gregory," she countered sharply. "What you're celebrating is nostalgia at best and useless at worst." "No," a voice chimed in, a local designer adding her voice to the chorus. "Fashion should reflect our lives, our passions, not just trends dictated by someone else's money." Gregory continued, gathering courage as he watched the ripple of agreement. "We are richer in our stories than in our wallets," he declared. "Each of us brings a unique perspective to the world. It's time we celebrate that instead of just the glitz and glamour." Yet as the words spilled from Gregory's lips, Melania's mouth curled into a smirk. "It's cute, really. But who do you think you're fooling? People come here for the exclusive experience I provide. You, she gestured dismissively, you are a mere footnote. Silence briefly enveloped the boutique as if every breath had been collectively withheld. Gregory could feel the burn of injustice lighting his chest, the painful weight of every elitist encounter he had endured flooding back. But before he could respond, Eleanor stepped forward, her voice unwavering. What defines me isn't how much money I make or who I cater to. What carries weight is my passion and dedication. Values I see reflected in Gregory. This isn't just a showcase, it's a community. It's where folks like me have a voice, where our hard work is valued. The truth in her words resonated throughout the boutique, igniting applause from the crowd. It was a resounding sound filled with hope and purpose, and Gregory felt emboldened, his heart swelling with pride as the applause crescendoed into cheers. Caught off guard by the escalating enthusiasm directed toward Gregory and the artists, Melania's carefully crafted facade began to crack. People she once held in her sway were expressing newfound respect for the little guy. For the first time, her influence felt paltry compared to the authenticity taking root before her. Do you mean to say, she retorted with a shaky laugh, desperation creeping into her tone, that a few stories can overshadow my entire expertise? That's naive. The crowd's energy only intensified. They were no longer passive observers, but active participants in this cathartic confrontation. As Gregory felt the overwhelming tide of support, something clicked inside him. It was more than just a rebuttal against Melania. It was about confronting the very essence of worth within the fashion industry. The truths he had lived by, the creativity that stemmed from necessity rather than excess, were what truly mattered. With a determined glance over the burgeoning crowd, Gregory responded, "And I think that's where you're wrong. These stories are triumphs. They create the fabric of our community, and that is something money cannot fabricate." Suddenly, the montage of artisan stories Gregory had carefully curated began to play on the screens around the boutique. It showcased their creativity, vulnerabilities, and the emotional journey they'd embarked upon to carve out their identity. The sounds of their voices rang through the air, weaving a narrative that pulsated with life. Seeing the room dimming as each artisan narrated their own experience, Melania's expression shifted from disbelief to realization. The once impenetrable confidence began to wane, and the laughter that had escaped her lips was replaced by a contemplative silence. She was being outmaneuvered in a way she never anticipated. These were the voices she had brushed aside, and now they commanded the space she had coveted. As the video ended, the applause erupted again, this time shaking even the strongest walls that Melania had built around herself. She was no longer the queen holding court. Her reign began fading as the community recognized their own worth over temporal glamour. Just as the crowd erupted into affirmations of Gregory's vision, Melania felt a sharp pang of self-reflection hit her like a cold wind. Perhaps this was not merely a challenge of fashion, but a visceral reckoning of who she was. In that moment, none could predict the outcomes of this pivotal confrontation. The crowd rallying around Gregory, binding them together in a newfound understanding of community, authenticity, and shared humanity, brought forth by one man's courage to stand against a Goliath that had begun to reel. Inside the boutique, a change had been set in motion, a clear turning point that would ripple through the tranquil lanes of Bellevue, celebrating not mere fashion, but the very essence of identity itself. In the aftermath of the fashion showcase, Bellevue felt transformed. The once comfortable veil of glamour that had enveloped the town was pierced, and its residents were awakened to a vibrant new reality, one where their choices would define their community. Gregory Bell stood at the heart of this pulse, his boutique now a symbol of resistance and resilience in the face of superficiality. Melania Trump, after observing the palpable shift in energy, began to withdraw from her typical social circles. The lavish parties she once hosted now felt empty, devoid of genuine connection. She frequently found herself reflecting on that night, haunted by the passion that flowed through Gregory's showcase. It was a mirror reflecting the hollowness of her own pursuits. The laughter that had once echoed at Gregory's expense was now replaced with the whispers of people discussing authenticity, diversity, and support for local artisans. The echo of applause for Gregory could still be heard, resonating through the town like a triumphant anthem. One afternoon, Gregory set up a meeting at his boutique to discuss a potential collaboration with the local artisans who had rallied behind him. They gathered under the soft light filtering through the boutique's windows, surrounded by the vibrant fabrics and intricate designs that defined their collective vision. As they brainstormed ideas, the energy in the room was electric. Each artisan shared their personal narrative, weaving stories of struggle that highlighted the strength and beauty ingrained in their creations. Gregory, deeply touched by their testimonies, felt an overwhelming sense of pride. He was no longer just a manager of a boutique. He was a beacon of hope, a champion for the voiceless. Meanwhile, the media began to shift its focus. The allure of luxury was still present, but now it intertwined with the tales of struggles and triumphs of local businesses. Gregory became a sought-after figure in interviews where he spoke about the importance of community support and staying true to one's roots. His message was clear: authenticity wins over glimmer. Even as Melania attempted to reclaim her footing on the social ladder, she found herself at a crossroads. The very social influencers she had relied upon began endorsing Gregory's endeavors, reflecting the new values that had emerged among their peers. In a moment of vulnerability, Melania reached out to Gregory, not in a spirit of confrontation, but as someone searching for connection. "Gregory, can we talk?" Her voice trembled slightly over the phone. It was an unexpected call, one he had anticipated but never hoped for. Intrigued yet cautious, Gregory agreed to meet at a local cafe. When they sat face to face, Melania spoke candidly. "I see it now, the impact of what you did. I never realized how much depth a community could bring to something so superficial. I was lost in a world that had me believing that power was defined by material." Gregory nodded, his heart racing. "It's never too late to recognize the value of authenticity, Melania. Change begins with understanding and accepting the errors of our past." That shared moment marked the beginning of a surprising alliance. Melania started attending Gregory's events, slowly becoming less of a figure of opulence and more of a supporter of genuine talent. As time moved on, Bellevue blossomed into a sanctuary for art and culture, fueled by a community that learned to cherish authenticity. Gregory, once an underdog, now stood as a pillar of strength in the town. The faces around him transformed. They shared his vision of inclusivity, weaving their stories into a rich tapestry of community. Who would have thought that a moment's humiliation could spark such profound change? The boutique was not merely a place to shop. It had emerged as a sanctuary for the soul. Gregory had learned that true power lay in vulnerability, and that empathy could dismantle barriers in the most unexpected ways, forever altering the fabric of Bellevue. As he looked around at the thrumming life his vision had crafted, he realized that even the mightiest could change, creating a legacy that endured beyond the superficiality of status.